Several years ago, there was a 47-year-old woman from Scotland who appeared on Britain Has Talent. And as she approached the stage and began her own self-introduction, you could see that Simon Cowell was not impressed. In fact, he began to roll his eyes. And as the cameraman scanned the audience that was there, you could tell that many were in the same boat as Simon. They didn't think that this woman belonged there. She was 47 years old, too old to be appearing on the show. As they looked at how she was dressed, she seemed to be kind of grumpy and shabbily dressed. As you looked at her hair, it appeared that she was having a bad hair day. As she began to answer the questions of the judges, she began to stumble her words, and the answers she gave were rather simplistic and naive. And when she was asked the question, what did she hope to gain from her presence that evening, she said that she wanted to be a music star, to sing all over the world. And with that, many in the audience began to laugh, and Simon began to smirk. At that, the judges told her to begin her audition, and so the lights were dimmed, and as the music to her song, I Dream a Dream, was being piped in, all of a sudden you could hear a silence within the crowd. They were not silent because they were anxious to hear what she was going to sing, thinking that she was going to astound them, but they wondered how quickly she would stumble, how quickly she would fall, how quickly she would make a fool of herself in front of them and the world. But as she opened her mouth and began to sing, after a few short words, the audience was wowed at what they heard. The beauty, the majesty, the power that came out of her voice. And within a few seconds, many of them were already up standing, clapping for her. And as the 3.5 minutes of her song went on, she wowed all of those that were there, including the judges. And after she had finished, many of the judges commented in the post-interviews of how they had written off the woman when she first came in. They thought that she was too old, that she was too grumpy, that she was too behind the times, that she was too naive. How could anything come from this? But then, when they heard her voice, they were blown away. One of the judges said that it was the best of all performances that he had ever heard in his life, and how he was ashamed that he had judged her by her appearances and by her words, and not by her talent. And so, in many ways, this woman exemplified the old adage, you can't judge a book by its cover. And yet, sadly, Simon Cowell, the other judges, and the audience that day judged her by her appearance and not by her talent. But in spite of that, she did not give up. She gave all that she had in the performance. And as a result of that, she not only stunned the judges and the audience, she not only got a green light to continue in the competition, but she eventually was one of the 2 finalists. And though she did not win in the finals, she did win in the sphere of the public. And she began a career that took her all over the world over the span of these past 15 years. And who is this book that was judged by its cover? It is none other than the award-winning singer, Susan Boyle, who has performed before millions and millions of people, dazzling them not by her appearance, but by her music. And as a result, she was able to use what God had given to her and to be able to touch the lives of others. You cannot judge a book by its cover, and you cannot be limited by what other people think or say about you. Susan had the courage to be able to dream her own dream, and as she dreamt that dream, she was able to make a difference not only in her life, but in the lives of others, because of her authenticity, because of her desire to be herself, because of her desire to pursue her passions and use the gifts and the talents that she had. You can't judge a book by its cover. I think in many ways, this experience of Susan Boyle, this adage of not judging a book by its cover, is at the heart of the gospel that we have just heard this evening. As you know, for these past 3 weeks, we have been reading through this 6th chapter of St. Luke's gospel, known as the Sermon on the Plain, where Jesus has been teaching the apostles and the crowds the essential basics of the Christian life, of what it means to be his disciple, what it means for them to be able to build the kingdom, what it means for them to be countercultural and not to fear being rejected or mocked by others. And now tonight, as this 6th chapter is coming to a close, Jesus in many ways provides this summary, bringing together all of this rich teaching that he has been giving and helping the apostles and the crowds then and us today to be able to embrace what it means to truly be a disciple, to be a follower. You cannot judge a book by its cover. And this ultimately is what Jesus says. Why do you see the speck in your neighbor's eye, but do not see the log in your own eye? And really, wasn't this the problem of Simon Cowell and the other judges? Wasn't this the problem of the crowd that was gathered that day for the addition? That all they could see was the speck of Susan Boyle. They saw her elderly age. They saw her frumpy clothes. They saw her bad hairdo. They saw her mumbling words. They saw her outrageous dream. And instead, they judged her by these things, instead of looking into the depths of their own hearts and lives. They ignored the log that was there before them, their own self-righteousness, their own self-centeredness, their own prejudices and biases, their own sense of being judgmental and closed to others. And as a result of that, they judged her and they ignored the log that was there before them. And because of that, they almost missed the opportunity to be able to witness something beautiful, something amazing, something that would change their hearts and their lives. You cannot judge a book by its cover. Why do you see the speck in your neighbor's eye, but not the log in your own? And in many ways, as Jesus sums up all of his teaching on this Sermon of the Plain and gives to them that challenge, not once, not twice, but 3 times in our gospel this evening, it is an invitation to you and I to be able to look at the log that is within our own eyes, within our own heart, within our own lives, of how it is that we act like Simon Cowell or the other judges or the audience that day. In many ways, it is providential that as we are about to enter into the sacred season of Lent, beginning this Wednesday, the Church gives to us this gospel to reflect upon and to meditate upon, to help us to enter into that sacred season. For we know that the season of Lent is a season for us to be able to examine the logs within our own hearts and our own lives, to become more and more aware of how it is that we have missed the mark in being in right relationship with God, with others, with our true selves, how we have allowed attitudes and actions to take hold of us that prevent us from living healthy and holy lives, being the saints that God calls us to be. And so the sacred season of Lent is an opportunity for us to purify our hearts and our minds, to be able to convert and to become more and more believers and doers of the good word of the Lord each and every day of our lives. And so this sacred season of Lent invites us to take that inward journey and to be able to see where it is that we need to repent and how it is that we need to believe more firmly and more faithfully in the good news of Jesus, not only embracing his word, but putting that word then into action in the midst of our daily lives. And so it is a challenge and an invitation for each and every one of us, because we know that we can easily be like Simon or the other judges or the crowds, that we can easily see the speck in our neighbor's eyes, in our spouse, in our children, in our neighbors, in the strangers that we meet on the street, and how easy it is for us to judge them, how easy it is for us to label them, how easy it is for us to shun them, how easy it is for us to turn our back upon them, because we think we know what is happening in their hearts and in their lives, as the judges in the crowd thought that they knew what Susan Boyle was all about. But when we dare to be open, when we dare to be authentic, when we dare to see more than what is before us, then, like the crowds then, we too can be surprised and shocked by the beauty, by the giftedness that is there. And so our Lenten season invites us then to be able to see as God sees, to be able to look at others, not with judgment or with rashness, but to look with love, with mercy, and with compassion. But our Lenten journey is not only about purifying ourselves from the judgments that we make towards others, but our Lenten season also is about purifying ourselves from those stumbling blocks that are in our hearts and in our lives by the words and the deeds, the actions and the attitudes we take in trying to live out our lives. And so we too then are called to purify ourselves so that we can become more healthy and more holy, so that, like Susan Boyle, we can dare to dream the dream that God has in store for us, to be his holy people, to be his saints. And so as we approach this sacred season of Lent, as many of us will come to church on Ash Wednesday and receive ashes on our head, we will be reminded of the fundamental task of repent and believe in the good news. We will be encouraged not to judge a book by its cover. We will be invited not to see the speck in our neighbor's eye, but to be able to see the log within our eye, and then to do something about it so that we can become more and more the faithful, fruitful, intentional disciples of Jesus. As we enter into this Lenten season, let us be like Susan Boyle, to use our gifts and our talents, to dare to dream, and to be able to give what we have to others, to be able to make a difference in their lives, so that when we do come to celebrate the great solemnity of Easter, our hearts and our lives will be purified and converted. We will become more and more faithful and fruitful disciples, filled with new life, so that we can continue to build God's kingdom here and now, and to set the world on fire with God's love, with God's mercy, and with God's compassion.